Good morning,
Hello.
everybody.
Welcome back to Lush Life No Labels. I'm Michelle.
And this is Alfredo. This is already our fourth episode. Thank you for sticking with us.
Did you think we would get this far?
I'm actually proud of us for our sticking with this, sticking to this, and not quitting after two episodes. We're keeping it up.
Yes, I'm proud of us.
So this podcast, obviously, we're talking about friendship a lot. We're friends. And this week, we wanted to talk about friendship and making friends and how hard it can be to make friends in your 20s. Michelle and I haven't lived in the same city for how many years?
Over 5 years for sure. It's been a long time.
Yeah, like 6 years, maybe 6 years, I guess. So we haven't lived in the same city, but we've kept in touch this whole time and we visit each other. She's gonna come visit me soon. I'm gonna come visit her next month. But one thing we've talked about a lot is how hard it is to make new friends as you get older. And I don't think that we're weird people, that we're socially inept for I
We
mean,
both have a good group of friends around, but what we want to talk about more is as we get older, how do we maintain friendships? Do we seek out more friends? Some people are fine with the circle that they have. Some people want to expand friends. Maybe you start a new activity and you meet people through that. We wanted to talk about that because both of us, at least this week, for our topic of the week, we had different interactions with friends. And so we wanted to use that as the main point for our conversation today.
and that's what we were getting into is, when you're in school, whether that be grade school, high school, or university, or even grad school, it's pretty easy to make friends because you're going through the same experience with everybody you're with.
And they also facilitate making friends through orientation, clubs.
Even the dorms, you live together. We lived in the same building our first year of university, and we met the first week of school basically, and we've been friends since then. So now we're 28, 29. So it's been about
Yeah, I
10
describe
years.
our friendship when I talk to other people. I say we have a long distance friendship because we've been maintaining this over international waters before too. And now we're back in the same time zone, which is interesting for us. But we've had to communicate virtually for longer than we actually went to school for.
At this point, yes, but we still see each other on and off occasionally. Michelle came to Spain to visit me, even.
I think for us not being in the same place, we are very intentional about seeing each other. And for us, I think we mutually like to see each other in person as well a few times a year. But I think those types of things over time when you're friends with people. So I guess the question that I'm trying to get at is, do you think you and I have been more intentional about our friendship compared to when we first started being friends?
I mean, we definitely don't spend time physically together anymore as often. Obviously, we don't live in the same city or even the same country. But I think maybe a lot of people can relate to this. And it happened to me with Michelle and with other friends I have was that during COVID, when it started, when there was the lockdown and you were home, the only way to really communicate with your friends or family was through Zoom, Skype, FaceTime. One thing that happened with me was that I kind of reconnected with some of my friends that maybe didn't live where I was living in Spain, but people I knew from America or other parts of Spain. We kind of reignited our contact and we spoke even more when we were in lockdown and staying home. And because of that whole experience, I've learned that the distance doesn't really matter between a friend, if this makes any sense. I moved to Florida in the US from Spain about a year or so ago, and I don't know many people here in Florida. I've met people, of course, but my best friends don't live here. But I still feel that I am in strong contact with my really good friends from Spain and from other parts of America very frequently. So I still feel close to them, even if I don't see them in person, and I still keep in touch with them a lot. And
Yeah,
that's something I think I learned through COVID.
I completely agree. And I think, especially the best friends, and that's what I was saying, I guess, for me about intentional, because sometimes you end up having a different life than your friends. Maybe your schedules don't align. So life can sort of get in the way of talking to people. And so with COVID, we had plenty of more time to get back to those friendships. And for me now, my really good friends, a lot of them don't live in my area as well. And so we are really intentional about talking and seeing each other, and just we want to be in each other's lives even though we don't live in the same place. And I think that's pretty nice. But I do agree that COVID helped me strengthen a lot of my friendships that I still have today.
For sure, and it helped me reconnect. And like I said, you reconsider, how important it is to see the person in, in flesh and blood. That's the
Mhm.
expression, right?
COVID definitely did not save all of my friendships though, but
Really?
no, I think that's just a part of life too. As time goes on, not everyone stays in your life. And that's just because of circumstances, because of differences, whatever it may be. Because we also change, we can change, or our circumstances can change over time. And I think not all friendships can withstand time.
That's true. But also, my next thought would be of the friend group you have, would you say it's pretty stable now?
Yeah, I would say that. I have a lot of people who I consider friends who I believe at least that we value each other that in strong ways. So I would say yes. I do have a strong core group of friends.
I would say that as well, but I think that it's sort of filtered out. I've sort of filtered out people that were not good friends. And
Hmm.
we've talked about this a lot in general when I was living in Madrid. I didn't have many friends, but the friends I had were good friends, like people I could count on to let me sleep at their house or help me out if I needed something. And I think that's kind of in stark contrast to how I used to be when I was 18 or 19 or even in my early 20s, where I had a lot of people I hung out with that maybe then I would have considered them to be
A friend.
friends, but now
Okay.
I don't know if I would really consider those people friends. But I had a very active social life and I was
I
always
know
seeing
it.
people. But now I think it's different. For example, this doesn't happen to me here and because I don't go out as much, but in Spain, I had a lot of, I don't know if I'd call them friends, like people you would see out and about, like acquaintances, and you would be friendly with them if you saw them, but they're not your friends.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But I also think as you get older, you have more criteria about what is a friend to you and what you look for in a friend, and you're choosy about who you want to be friends with.
Yeah, and I think that coincides with getting to know yourself more. So you get to know yourself more, your likes, your dislikes. And I think for me, in terms of friends, I spend energy. I don't want to just feel like I'm wasting my time or that something is not mutually beneficial for us. If it's a friend situation, I want to spend my time with people that I really care about and really click with. So I get what you're saying with those acquaintances, because there are a lot of people that I know that, yeah, I'm friendly with them and we can hang out at events and things like that. But I may not reach out if I'm having a hard time or if I made a milestone or whatever it may be. So I agree that we have those types of people in our lives, because not everyone is your friend, and that's okay.
No, exactly. And I think you become more discerning about knowing, okay, this person really is my friend, this person isn't. But it gets harder to make friends as you get older. And for me, it's been an experience since I moved here to Florida. I moved not knowing anybody really, and I do spend more time alone than I used to. And I've asked myself a lot of questions, and I've talked to Michelle about this too, where I've said to myself, am I weird? Is there something wrong with me? I haven't made many friends here. And I don't think that it's that I have social problems or social ineptitudes that impede me from making friends. It just becomes harder as you get older to make friends because I think one, you're more choosy and demanding about the people you spend your time with. And also it's different as adults. We're working a lot. We don't have as much time to just hang out with people.
Yeah, that's true. And I mean, you mentioned this before, when we're younger, we're in environments where we can make friends, we're more eager to make new friends. You're saying we all work. It takes a lot of energy sometimes to make a friend and to start building a relationship versus continuing to sort of water the relationships you already have, because you don't know this person and there's a lot of things that may go into meeting those criteria that you consider a friend. So if someone doesn't have those qualities, sometimes it's easier to just break off the friendship earlier on, because that's better than continuing to try to drag something that may not work.
No, and it's hard. And I think, when I was 18, I was always excited and willing and able to meet new people, and I would be
We
excited.
met. We met because I was trying to make friends during orientation. And I walked into your hall, and you all were in that lounge because my hall didn't have a lounge, but you all were in that lounge just talking and things like that. And I think that's how we ended up meeting. So the eagerness of like these days as an adult, I'm not going to just walk into a room per se and just depending on the environment, right? But I'm not going to just do that and expect to just start friendships that way. It's much harder.
No, and I don't know if it's you get more shy or you're less enthusiastic or what it is, but that definitely happens to me too, where sometimes I might be invited to go to a bar or some sort of social event, and sometimes I say to myself, you know what, I'd rather just stay home and read a book or watch
Mhm.
something. And I think that that's a change in me because I think at 18 I would have said, "Oh, let's go, let's go." And I try to still keep that spirit in me active of being willing and open to meeting new people, but it's not as easy, I think.
Yeah, but you went to a concert recently, right? By accepting an invitation from a new friend.
Definitely, and I try to make myself be open to these new things. And like I said, most of my friends don't live in the city I'm living in, they live in other places. So I do think it's important to have these in-person, interactions and it's important to spend time with people in real time. But I do sometimes feel more hesitant and reluctant to agree to meet up with people now. And it's surprising to me. But at the same time, I want to keep that eagerness because I think it's an important part of life to meet new people and have new experiences. And deep down, I am an extroverted person. I love meeting new people, but
Mhm.
I'm not as eager, I guess, as when I was, 18.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And for me, it's definitely harder to make new friends. I think making those acquaintances that you see out at certain events and environments, that's one thing. But friends who for me, sometimes finding a commonality with them or an activity that we can do together is one way to start a friendship because you can bond on that activity and then talk while you're doing it and get to know each other more. But I've also made friends where we did have some things in common, but then I guess over time, the friendship didn't really last because I felt like, oh, I was like reaching out to try to hang out with the friend, and at first, they were enthusiastic, and then they weren't, and then they completely fell off the map. And so sometimes, making new friends doesn't always go the way you want, but that's not to say that with long-term friends, that does not always happen
You're
as
saying
well.
that you might also grow apart as friends.
Exactly. With new friends, with old friends. But I do think it's nice to meet new people and you can discover things about yourself or what you like, don't like, and things like that. And I get it for people who are introverted. It may be a bit harder to make friends. I would say I'm ambivert, the in between. So I get a little bit of both. But what do you think about making new friends? For you, you've moved to a new place. So you've had to meet everyone that you know now. Have you found that to be hard or difficult?
You recommended me to use Bumble Friends, and it
Oh yeah, I
was
forgot about
uh,
that.
not where it
I
was
have a
not
friend who
happening.
used
It
it in
was
a
not a
different
good.
city. I have a friend who used it in a different city and it did work for her.
Yeah, it was.
So
It
it's a hit or
was.
miss, just like any
It
other
was
dating app.
not really giving any good results. I would say this Bumble Friends.
What do you think it was missing? Was it like it didn't know the criteria that you have about friends?
Yeah, and I think that it's hard because you want to be open-minded, right? And so maybe if I put, Alfredo, I just moved here from Spain looking to meet people, then I would kind of say to myself, I don't know if I want to meet up with these people. And also that's a whole other topic in itself is that you're judging these people based on a profile on an app. And I know that that has its limitations, but sometimes maybe I was being judgmental, but I would just say to myself, I don't really know what I have in common with this person.
Right. And that's the thing. I think part of meeting people virtually can be that way, unless there was an initial commonality that you found or something like that.
But I
Like I
think
think
that's the
of
hard
a
part.
podcast where the two hosts they met on Twitter on the app years ago. I think over a decade ago, over messaging on something, a mutual like or something like that. And then now they're really good friends and in each other's lives, and it's been great for them. So I do think there are ways to make friends online, and I'm sure a lot of listeners have made friends online through different means. But I think for me, or with my personality, making a friend, usually I have to spend one-on-one time with them. Sometimes you meet people in groups, but for me, I find it hard to connect with someone unless I'm speaking only with them. And that's really the way that I can cultivate a new friend. So even if it's I've never tried making friends through profiles online, but I think if I met someone for the first time, I would try to do a one-on-one. That's the easiest way for me to see if I click with someone or not. But if it's in a group, it's harder for me to discern it
It's
because I know
interesting
how
that
they are on their own with me.
that's true. And obviously, for me to feel close to somebody, I need to feel like we can be alone, just the two of us, and talk about anything and feel comfortable. And sometimes you can hang out with people in a group, but you cannot hang out with them one on one. Like you would,
Exactly.
well, you wouldn't want to,
I
let's say.
don't make friends ever when it's in a group.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, I would have had to have some other interaction with the person that was alone with them, even if it was just several conversations.
It's interesting though, the story about the Twitter is it's interesting to me because I always find it really nice and inspiring when you hear about people who become friends kind of spontaneously out of nowhere when you weren't really expecting to be friends, because that can happen as well. For example, in Madrid, probably my best friend in Madrid went to my gym and then I randomly ran into him and we started hanging out, and this was in a while, this at least 3 or 4 years ago. But that happened completely unexpectedly. It was very low stakes. We ran into each other at the gym, and then we hung outside once and went for a walk, and then we became really good friends, and it just happened. And that's always nice when those things do happen. And that's why I say I try to keep an open mind about it and say to myself, maybe I can meet someone spontaneously and we will become really good friends, because everyone is built a certain way, everyone has a certain type of personality and interest, and maybe serendipitously you meet someone who really clicks with you, and that can definitely happen. I don't think it's probable, but it definitely can happen.
Hmm.
But I want to get back to what you said also about friend groups,
Hmm.
because we've talked about this a lot, but I've never been someone to have a big friend group. Most of the time, my friend groups have been maybe 4 people most, and not even that. I actually prefer one-on-one, maybe intimate social interactions more than big groups. But then other people will be, 10 people and they hang out all the time together.
Yeah, I have mixtures of friend groups. I have different friend groups based on when I met them or how I met them. But I'd say I don't have, yeah, we're not rolling 10 deep. Like, that's not what it is for any of my friend groups. But I do have a lot of friends in different areas, and but yeah, I do prefer one-on-ones. But then yeah, if you have like three or four, I think that's nice. Or if you have a like if somebody has a party or has an event, like maybe more of you are there, but that's more of a every once in a while.
It's also cultural because in Spain and like Latino people as well are usually in groups. They like to do things in big groups, and that's something that I never really internalized, I guess. What the word, assimilated. But that's pretty common in Spain, to have 8 friends and they all go to a restaurant together and they all go to the club together. And I've never been that way personally.
Yeah, I think I've been in situations on and off like that, but it really just depends on the friends. But I think going 8 people to the restaurant only happens if it's someone's birthday, or, when I was in school, for example, like we would do a lot of people are going to different events, but that's because it's like school events and things like that. So there you would have more people, but my close friends, it wouldn't be like 10 people for most things. That's for sure.
Thing I want to touch on is I just mentioned this now, there's a cultural element to friendship because I would say Spanish people like to spend a lot of time with their friends. Obviously, every individual is different, but I would say culturally, Spanish people, Latino people like to do things together a lot and spend a lot of time together. And I think in other cultures, that's not as important to people with their friends. So, in terms of frequency, how often would you say you hang out with your friends? And how much time do you spend with them?
It depends on the friend. So some friends we just text a lot and then we'll see each other in person for a few days at a time, at least once or twice in the year. Some friends I see more frequently. Because, like I said, a lot of my good friends don't live here. Usually, it's I'm seeing them for a couple of days at a time. Some I see more frequent, like I see you more frequently, even as a long distance friend, than some of my other long distance friends. You know what I mean? But I would say during my week, I see at least one friend a week. That's for sure in person.
That's good.
Like what, at least one day, or we may spend an afternoon together. For me, I spend hours with my friends. We don't just like meet up for 30 minutes and then like we don't do appointments like that. So when I'm with my friends, we are together for like the whole day or all afternoon, or we'll do brunch, but then we'll do, like walk around. So we do at least 2 hours, maybe, or at minimum 2 hours, I would say, is how much time I spend with my friends, no matter or at least with my close friends. Yeah.
This is also kind of cultural, I think, because I think Americans are more likely to plan friend time, like let's go get lunch at noon on Wednesday. And I understand people here work busy lives, people work
Yeah.
a lot. And I remember it was sort of a cultural shock to me when I came here about a year ago. And I messaged someone who I had known from when we went to university together. And I said, "Hi, I'm back in America. I would like to see you." And he said, and this was maybe a Saturday. He said, "I'm free at Wednesday for lunch." And it kind of blew my mind because I don't know what I'm doing that far in advance usually on a Wednesday. So I was like, what? Um,
I'm the type of person who would though, honestly. So
no,
I
I understand that, but I think in Spain, a lot of people don't plan out their time that much.
oh
They
I
just say, I'm free, like let's hang out. And I do find that here people are not as spontaneous about
You're
let's just
saying
meet
they're
up.
penciling you in to their schedule.
Yeah, and I think that in other cultures, people are more spontaneous about saying like, "Hey, I'm free right now," or "I'll be free in 2 hours. Why don't we
Yeah.
hang out?"
So I have, yeah, there's someone in my life who's like that, who's much, so I'm an immigrant, but I've been here for 20 years, and this person's a more recent immigrant, and we're from a similar culture, and they're like that, where they're like, oh, what are you doing in 30 minutes? And I'm like, I like don't have time. Like I've already planned out. I plan my time out more. It's interesting because I've been living here for so long. So I do plan out my time during that, but I also have days where it's like I don't pencil my friends. Like I leave time because I'm like, oh, I might want to hang out with this person or these three people or whoever it may be. So I leave time because I want to. If my friend's like, hey, do you want to go do this? I'll say yes to that day. So I think for me, it depends on how much I have going on. And maybe that's the American thing. So it's a little bit of both. Like I think, for example, when we're together, we don't necessarily schedule things. We just like if we visit each other, hanging out with our friends, sometimes we might schedule like oh, let's go to dinner tomorrow night with these people. But I think we also have random times where we may do spontaneous things with friends, and it's not always a schedule. But maybe
No,
it's, do you think we only do that with people we're closer with though? Like we're more flexible with our time with people who we would prefer more time to spend with versus someone who is a friend but maybe isn't as good a friend. I guess my question is your readiness to hang out with someone. Do you think that depends on how close you are with them?
when you're close with somebody, I think that, this even goes into dating. When you're really comfortable with somebody, you don't feel pressured or there's any expectation to be a certain way or that the interaction will be a certain way. You can just hang out and not do anything and you know that you'll enjoy that
Each
person's
other's company.
company.
Exactly.
And maybe with a new person, you don't know them as well, so you might be more worried or concerned about, oh, are they going to have fun with me? Are they going to enjoy hanging out with me? versus, someone that you've known forever. Like with Michelle, we can just do nothing together and enjoy each other's company.
Yeah.
And we don't need to plan activities or really anything. Even when I go visit her or she visits me, it's not like, all right, we this is our
We have to go
itinerary,
do this.
this and this and this. Like I'll have fun just staying home doing nothing.
Yeah, I agree.
On that point, I think a good segue then is, what do you think makes a fulfilling friendship? Because people might have friends, but they might not be happy with their friends. I think that that has to do a lot about the people you permit into your life and the kind of friends that you keep and
Yeah.
what you demand. But my question then is, what do you think the keys are to a fulfilling friendship? When you think about friends you have that you really appreciate them and value them and you feel that they reciprocate that, what qualities do you see in those friendships?
That's a great question. I'm thinking, I mean, you talked about not being happy with your friends. I think even some of my good friends that I still have in my life, there have been times where we have not been happy with one another. And I think what friendships, just like any relationship, I would say, and most people may agree, takes work, not takes work, but it takes both of the people wanting to make it work. And for me, I would say a lot of my friendships, the ones that I have now, I'm not having like a big blow up with them or anything like that. Like I don't feel like my friendships are work personally for my close friends. I think my friends and I understand each other, which is what makes me really like our friendship. Me being able to be myself around this person, me feeling like they are not going to judge me for being me, having fun with them. I laugh a lot with my friends, and that's really important for me. Being able to giggle together over nothing and over everything is really important. Having like different things in common with each other. Like you said, for me, just being around each other, doing nothing and enjoying each other's company is really what makes a friend. But I think a friend also is for the good times, of course, you can go out and dance together and eat together, all of that stuff. But also, if you're going through a hard time, as people do, maybe when it's not so joyful, friends should be able to listen to you and support you just by being there for you, right? We're talking about we don't live in the same place, but you and I are very supportive of one another. We're willing to listen to each other through the good and the bad and rant to each other and just feel like it's okay and feel like there's
And I
somebody
think
that support us.
and I think we know about what's going on in each other's lives. So if certain job thing is happening to Michelle or family thing or whatever, I already know about it. And if she wants to tell me about it, then I'm already kind of clued in on the whole background story.
Yeah. And I think your friends, for me too, like your friends should hold you accountable, right? Like it's not like, oh, like your friend should be in your corner and all that stuff. But I think for my friends and I, we're also sarcastic with each other, but like we also help each other out as you get older, right? Like maybe we became friends over certain things, but then it's like, oh, now we talk about career and we talk about other things growing up. And so it's somebody who, for me, my friends are my family. That's one of the definitions that I would take from what a family can be.
For sure. And I think it's interesting that you say hold accountable because one, I think about our friendship that I love and appreciate is that I know that Michelle wouldn't just tell me what I want to hear, or if I were being unreasonable, or if I were in the wrong, she wouldn't just encourage me, like, yeah, like, fuck
Mhm.
that person. She would really see it from both sides and offer a kind of impartial take on the whole situation. And that's something I like, that my friends can encourage me to grow as a person too, not just kind of tell me what I want to hear and to be psychophantic or anything like that.
Yeah, and that's the type of friendships that we like. But I do know that different types of friendships exist. So some people don't want all of the things that we want in friendships. Some people, maybe they just want this person to distract them from things about their life or things that they don't want to necessarily think about, right? So sometimes you have friends that you do certain activities with and everything too. I think that certain types of friendships exist, but I like the fact that we are compatible in our friendship.
But it's also interesting because when we were first friends, when we were students, we didn't have the type of friendship that we have now. And I think two things, you change as a person as you get older, you grow up, hopefully you mature and grow as a person. That's you would hope that's what happens with people. And your friends can change too. And Michelle and I are very different people than when we became friends, but we've grown together and we haven't drifted apart. But I have had cases where I don't think that my friends or former friends have grown as people, or we grew in just different ways and we can't be friends anymore. And it's nice when you have friends like our friendship where we've changed a lot, but we can still be friends. And our friendship has even gotten more intimate, I guess,
Hmm.
because we've talked about, as we've gotten older, we've talked about more things than we did in university that I wouldn't have really wanted to speak about, like family things
We're
or
more open with each other.
yeah, our insecurities, where when you're younger, maybe you don't feel as comfortable talking about those type of things with people. But now it's important for me to be able to talk about those type of things with a friend, because if we can't share our vulnerable side with somebody, then why are we friends with them? In
Yeah.
this in the same vein though, so we're talking about positive friendship traits. Some people keep negative toxic friends
Yes.
and they don't do anything about it. Why do you think that is?
Negative toxic friends. I think people who stay friends with negative toxic friends, unless you really know the dynamic of that friendship, maybe they actually co-sign the way that that person acts. So that could say something about them.
Like
Maybe
mutually like dependency amongst the
there
two.
could be mutual dependency. Yeah, there could be some other reason why they can't cut off the friendship. Maybe they want to, but they don't have the courage to, or it could be any reason if it's not that they actually co-sign it. But just like with other things, sometimes it's hard to untangle yourself from certain people in your life. Sometimes it takes a lot. For me, I've had friendships where it was very negative, but it continued on for far too long. And that was because it was hard for me to break off that friendship. For whatever reason, I couldn't do it.
And I guess that happens with relationships
Well,
too,
I did. Exactly, with other relationships as well.
or I
So
mean romantic relationships where people stay in them even though they deep down know it's not going anywhere, or it's only bringing negativity or bad energy to their lives, but they stick with it.
yeah, I was going to say, I've also had friendships where we had negative things going on and we were able to work it out. So that is also something where if the people decide, you know what, let's both try to figure this out, then you can repair it. Whether your friendship will be exactly the same as it was before, that I don't know. But if you want to stay in the friendship and you want to save the friendship, for me, there have been times where I've actually put in effort to try to resolve things with a friend and it worked out. And in other cases, it hasn't. So sometimes that's how life is.
We had a very serious fight in university.
We did actually.
Well, let me explain. I didn't know it was that serious,
Okay.
but basically, Michelle didn't have a kitchen at her apartment.
I didn't.
So she would leave some of her food at another friend's
Right.
house.
Hmm.
And one time I went to his house and heated up her French fries or chicken nuggets or
Or
something.
something.
And I ate them and didn't think of it. I said, oh, it's not a big deal. I'll just replace it when I have the time.
And you didn't tell me. So
Yes, I didn't.
that day, I remember this because it was like maybe the biggest thing that's ever happened between us. So maybe that has said something about our friendship. But so I had a final for an exam that had been one of the most challenging classes I've ever taken in my academic career. And the exam was at night. So by the time it had finished, none of the restaurants would have been open. So I wanted to go eat this food and I hadn't eaten all day and I go to eat this after this exam and my food was completely gone. So the devastation of being defeated by my exam and then just not having anything to eat just made me so mad. So I tried to explain this to you and you didn't take me seriously. You laughed in my face and I felt so wronged. I just stopped talking to you.
Okay, but it was a while. Like I think I said, "Hey, what's up?" and the messages just went
You
unanswered.
met with silence.
But in my defense, I didn't realize this whole element of the test. I thought that she was just being really unreasonable that I had eaten her
I
food.
had explained it to you. You just thought it was no big deal. I mean, it was just a communication thing, but I just think sometimes, even with friends, you have to try to understand. Well, for me, I think sometimes it's hard to understand other people, and you may think that people are being unreasonable, which I totally get. It's like, I get why you would think that. I think for me, it was something where if I express a communication barrier or like if I express something to a friend, because I think we were saying earlier that we value our friends supporting us and things like that about other things that are happening in our lives. But between the friends, things have to be going well between us. So for me, I felt like if I aired my grievances to a friend about something that I felt was very important, I'd want them to take it seriously or at least try to understand me from my side because I try to understand other people from their side. So that's one of the things that I do value in a friend is that we will listen to each other's issues, but we will also listen to each other if there's something that we feel like we need to address. And that's what some of my stronger friendships, that's what makes it strong for me. And some of the friendships that have not lasted for me between university and now, it's because that value was not mutual between me and the friend, and so it broke down. So that's why that has been our biggest fight, and we were able to overcome that. So
Well, let's wrap up the episode. I hope that this was a thought-provoking dialogue between us about friendship and it made you think about the friends you have in your life. To start off, I'm not going to ask a question to our listeners, but instead of that, I'm going to just ask you to think about a really good friend that you have in your life, someone that you can count on, who you appreciate, who you feel grateful for, who accepts you for you, that you feel like you can be 100% yourself around. And I want you to think about that person and tell them how much you appreciate having them in your life.
I appreciate having you in my life, Alfredo.
I do too. I appreciate having you in my life, Michelle. But we're not too cheesy. But I
No.
do.
And the second thing is to think about a friendship that, for lack of a better term, maybe on the rocks, or think about if there are any friendships that you want to have a conversation about, or you want to put in more effort, or you want to pull back a little bit, whatever it may be, and think about whether or not it's worth your time to continue to have that person be in your life. It doesn't need to be a big thing. You don't need to cut anyone out of your life, but it may be worth thinking about the other side too.
And lastly, I'd like you to think about your friend circle and the people that you keep in your life and think about how often you see them, how often you talk to them, and ask yourself if you're happy with the level of communication and interaction that you have right now, or if you'd like it to be different.
And with that, we'll end today's episode.
All right, everybody, have a wonderful week. Thank you for listening.